The PlayStation 6 is rumored to be a hybrid handheld console, much like the Nintendo Switch. What would this mean for the next-gen console, and how seriously should we take these rumors? That's coming up next on Next Gen Console Watch, right after these messages. Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond, and Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked. And today we're discussing the PlayStation 6, which has not been officially announced, but does have some new rumors about what Sony might be planning. The YouTube channel Moore's Law is Dead is claiming the PlayStation 6 will come in 3 different models, one of which will be a handheld that will be dockable like a Nintendo Switch. All 3 would apparently be backwards compatible with PS5 and PS4 games. The PS6 handheld will allegedly cost significantly less than the upcoming Xbox Ally X, age, quote, way better, not exactly sure what that means, and will be, quote, raw performance stronger. Now, the ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally X will be released in October on the 16th, but Microsoft has yet to announce the price. The Lenovo Legion Go 2 was just revealed to also be launching in October, starting at $1,100, so the Ally X will likely be quite expensive. Moore's Law is Dead's information is, it claims, based on up-to-date AMD documentation it has reviewed. So, let's get into all this. Max, what do you think about the PlayStation 6 potentially being more like the Nintendo Switch hybrid consoles, and how seriously do you take these leaks?
Personally, I love the idea. I think it's wonderful. I think it's kind of bizarre that Sony, who has, I would say, second only to Nintendo, the best track record with making gaming handhelds, has stayed so far out of this current handheld race. Like, it's really interesting that, Steam put out a handheld before Sony put out a third handheld on their end. Not counting the PSP Go. Like, it's, I think in a lot of ways the Switch has carried a lot of what made the Vita so cool, in that it's a wonderful haven for little indie games. It does take that console experience on the go. But as far as it being a hybrid thing, that's where the Switch really excelled. And I almost feel like we're sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It seems like almost an inevitable thing that Sony should jump on this. But again, it's also, is it such an obvious thing that Sony won't do it? I'm skeptical of the rumors, cautiously optimistic, because I would personally love a new PlayStation handheld. The thing that gives me a little bit of concern is the fact that there are 3 different models, because if there's one thing that is, I'd say, hampered this generation quite a bit, it's the Xbox Series S. The idea of having a new console generation that also has a slightly less powerful model kind of hampers the higher end models a bit, as we've seen a few times over. That said, the Switch 2 is currently selling like gangbusters. It's not that powerful. It's a Nintendo device. Like, they put their skill points in the game section more than the raw power hardware things. We're seeing Xbox in the ROG Ally X. That feels more like gaming PC territory. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of hoping we would see a dedicated Xbox handheld by now, but I would be more than happy to see PlayStation throw their hat in the ring, so to speak. I also can't help but think that, like, it's funny that a company called like Moore's Law is Dead is jumping on this, because that's the ancient theory that every 2 years the number of transistors in a processor will double. We've seen diminishing returns on hardware.
Yes.
And the Switch 2 is doing fine. It doesn't rely on super high-end hardware. Maybe Sony sort of pumps the brakes in terms of console generations and obscures that by having more of a venture into the portable side of things.
Well, it's true. The original Nintendo Switch in 2017 really did kick off a new golden era of handheld gaming, led to the Steam Deck, which led to numerous other quality handheld gaming PCs. Of course, today there are countless handheld retro hardware devices that cater to every niche imaginable. So, I don't know. Do you think this is just Sony reading the room and being like, hey, we cannot be the only hardware manufacturer that doesn't offer a portable experience?
Yeah. I mean, they put out that
there's the portal. Not exactly the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah, not quite. I would like to see them doing the thing that everyone else is doing. Sony has a long history of doing very proprietary things their own way, and sometimes that yields great results, and other times not so much. But what does a hybrid console look like that is, electronics first, like it's hardware first, like Sony does like to have really high-end, shiny, nice technical stuff. what does that look like in the form of a hybrid console? Because we've seen, you can plug an HDMI cable into your Steam Deck with varying results, and presumably the ROG Ally X has a similar thing. And Xbox's whole thing is you can play Xbox games anywhere. But like, yeah, what does a dedicated hybrid console not made by Nintendo look like? That's something I want to see. And yeah, if Sony's doing that, I'm in.
Well, Ryan, what's your take on this? Of course, they have the ROG, the third-party handheld, coming in October. They were at one point at least working on a first-party handheld, but the latest rumors are that has been sort of tabled for now.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I can't help but think of is wondering if this is true, if that also means that this is an indication that Sony is going to be moving to a more PC-friendly shipping games day and date on PC. Because if they're doing a handheld, would it be just a PlayStation, or would it actually just be a PC, not unlike what Xbox is doing? And that's maybe how they'd run things. Maybe not. I don't know how they'll choose to handle it. Sony has typically wanted to try and stay within its own ecosystem a heck of a lot more than Microsoft has. But I mean, I hope they do it, because I think it's just a great option for a lot of gamers. It would obviously be, I mean, or the rumor is that it would be a lower cost option.
Right.
And this is what I thought. I mean, I think I talked about it on this show. When the rumors that Microsoft was planning its own internal handheld for the start of next generation, I thought it might be a Series S replacement. Be the lower cost device compared to the more powerful set-top box that you could also dock and play off of a TV. And it seems like, well, maybe that is in fact exactly what Sony's doing, rather than Microsoft. So. Yeah, the PC question, I think, is a big one, and how affordably can Sony do this would be another one, because as we all know, Max, you mentioned the diminishing returns on hardware, but hardware is just getting more expensive, and development costs are getting more expensive. So if Sony has whatever Naughty Dog's next gen big thing is, that runs spectacularly on the PlayStation 6, but then you have it would have to be a lower powered handheld. Like, how do those two seemingly opposing forces kind of meet and figure it out? And so a lot of questions this raises, but I'm definitely intrigued at the possibility.
I think we're only about 6 weeks out from the ROG, the Xbox Ally. Still waiting on that price, though. What's your sort of when do you expect to get the price, and what are you sort of prepared for?
Well, so I did the smallest bit of research just because I was wondering, well, how close to the release date did we get the price for Series X and for PS5? And the answer was about 2 months. So now we're at about 6 weeks. We're inside that. I know there's this new weird tariff world that has created a lot of chaos and unpredictability, but quite honestly, Daemon, the every day that goes by and we get closer to that release date for the ROG Ally X and we don't have the price, the more expensive I think it is. Because if it was going to be, of course they know what the price is. It's not like they're still sitting in a boardroom going, well, maybe we could do, this price or that. Like, no, they know what the cost of their goods are. They know what the price is. They're just not announcing it. And I think the longer that goes, it must just be bad news, right? It's just not going to go over well. It's going to be super expensive. That's what I'm braced for. From talking to Michael Hyam from IGN's hardware team, who's on Unlocked with me, he knows kind of the comparable PC handhelds, and I don't know, the standard version probably won't be $1,000 or more, but I think the X may very well be a 4-figure amount of money.
Max, you were talking about the diminishing returns we've seen in hardware generations in recent years. I think traditionally people expect a significant upgrade in power, when they're moving from one console generation to the next. But like you said, recent generations that's seen diminishing returns. Do you think a hybrid portable console could be powerful enough to satisfy PlayStation fans, or would the novelty of it being portable be enough to sort of offset that?
I think the operative word here is option. Something that looks good enough if you're playing it docked, but that also works great when you take it on the go. We've seen this with the Switch. It's cool. Some people just never take the Switch out of their house. Other people never plug it into the wall. You also look at the stats of what people are playing on PS5, and it's a lot of live service games that came out in 2016. Like, people are still glued to, GTA Online and Rocket League and Fortnite, games like that. And I just this morning, there were rumors flying around that Resident Evil Requiem might be coming to PS4, which, that's great. But also, what is this generation if everything is going to be backwards compatible? And if that's the case, if we're seeing so few games fully adopt current hardware, what is the motivation to leave this behind if we're not even fully taking advantage of it yet? Like, I think if anything, it makes sense to re-examine what the approach is, where, you can't really have this constant escalation of, hardware properties if developers can't even keep up. If games are prohibitively expensive to develop, if you're, focused on getting photorealistic graphics and it takes a game 7 years to get made, maybe work on make it a fun game that looks like a video game that you can put out in 3 years and make it so that as many people as possible can play it. And, get something that runs on Switch 2 and Series S and PS4. And, if the PS6 portable is not a huge leap and a bound beyond the PlayStation 5, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, viewers, listeners, I'd like to hear from you. Do you want your next PlayStation to be a handheld hybrid or a dedicated home console? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next episode, just like we can from the poll from our previous episode. We were talking about, are you worried Nintendo Switch 2 will get a price increase because the Nintendo Switch 1 has, as well as the PS5 and Xbox Series has at this point. So, but almost 75% of you said you already have one, so you're covered, good to go. Nearly 17% of you said yes, you are thinking about getting one sooner than later, and 9% said no, you weren't interested in the first place, which, fair enough. Okay, if you're looking for something to play right now that helps support a great cause, head over to Humble. Live now through October 7th. Grab 8 incredible games for just $14.99, including WWE 2K25, Destiny 2 Legacy Collection 25, the Pluggy Squire, Return to Monkey Island. Every purchase supports Team Rubicon, a veteran-led humanitarian organization that unites military veterans, first responders, and civilians to deliver aid where it's needed most. By joining in, you're not just building your library, you're helping communities recover and rebuild. And that's our show. Thank you to both Max and Ryan for joining me today. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back next week with more on the latest in gaming hardware, and we'll see you then. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Damon Hadfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.